does the education system really work? This is an interesting topic because, I put a post out on social media not too long ago and I asked people, what are some of the top priorities for us to be able to tackle in terms of being able to make improvements within our society? And, a lot of people came back to me saying that education for them was a top priority. And we completely agree with that. At Revolution Hive, that's something that we significantly like to focus on as well. But before I go into it, let's look at the history of education, especially in the UK. In the UK, originally you had education really being taught in religious settings, whereby you had religious leaders that wanted to be able to teach reading and writing, essentially the use of language to young people that would hopefully develop into religious leaders in that same setting. And the only real alternative that existed to that was the concept of apprenticeships. We had young people essentially learning on the job. As time progressed, looking at kind of the 18th and the 19th century, you had, essentially the compulsory age for education and going to school was increasing now. However, there was a challenge because some families, for example, couldn't afford education. And even when it was free, there was a battle because they needed to bring a certain level of income into the family in order for the family to survive. So they were hesitant to keep their children in education when they could have potentially sent them to go out to work. Which is quite interesting because when we get to 1988 now, we've got the Education Reform Act. That caused a new dynamic because you had schools now having to compete with each other in terms of how many students they could attract, as well as their academic results at the end of education. So essentially by the time they were leaving school. But what this causes is that competition, is that actually relevant to the young people's development, or is that just relevant to schools ensuring that they can get enough funding and actually attract enough people to stay open? What's the priority there? Which brings me nicely onto our next point, which is, the world around us is forever changing. But is the education forever changing with it? And is it changing at the same rate and with the same relevance? Because when you look at globalization, technological advancements, free markets, it's clear that we need to be developing young people who are adaptable, and flexible, and can essentially go about navigating this ever-changing world they're going to be entering. And then at the same time, you've got an education system which is in its function is still preparing people for this 40-40-40 concept, where they can go out, leave education, find a job that they work for 40 hours a week in, that pays them, say, up to £40,000 a year, and they'll do that for 40 years of their life before retiring. But so many things are changing. So is that still relevant? So essentially, the results of our education system, what you get is young people who are entering the market or are entering the workplace or the workspace, but they've actually been wrapped in a bubble for so long. So they're not necessarily ready for all of the other dynamics that are going to be appearing around them, such as how they deal with employee relationships, such as how they deal with organizing their time, all these different things that they're also going to need to be able to do. And then that brings me nicely into the next point again around what the education system is resulting in, which is young people who are often well read and well versed in a particular topic area, but they're not always relevant. So for example, you could have a young person that can recite to you the information from all of the top textbooks in the topic area they've studied. But then when they enter the workplace, they're not really too sure how to apply that information, which is quite problematic in many ways. So these are just some of my thoughts around whether does the education system really work for us? And that's obviously that's with a lot of a UK focus, but it'd be interesting to know from you guys, what are some of the things that you feel the education system isn't doing so well and is letting us down when it comes to preparing young people for life, for employment, for business, for essentially going out and being a great citizen as well? Because of course there are some people who might want to go into, doing something that's very philanthropic or something that's very altruistic. And also it'd be good to hear from you in terms of you've got a different perspective from somewhere else in the world. What are some of the things that are being done really well that could potentially be duplicated or replicated in other parts of the world? Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one. Peace.